Hey everyone, Steve at Gigasheet here. Today I am going to be talking to you about Gigasheet's improved JSON processing. We have always been able to process JSON, but now we've made it easier to work with some of the giant JSON files that you all routinely load into Gigasheet. Now, as always, there's no downloads, there's no coding, there's no databases, there's no IT administration needed. Just upload your file and start to analyze. I'm going to be working with some health insurance data. I am not a health insurance expert in any way, but the industry puts out some truly giant JSON files for price transparency reasons. And these are incredibly difficult to analyze. So to see what I am talking about, let me flip over here. The problem is that the form in which they publish these tends to be files like this. You see that this is from Aetna, although it's pretty much all insurance companies have something like this, in which it is a zipped JSON file that they put out once a month. This file is 3.74 gigabytes zipped. Unzipped, it's nearly 152 gigabytes of space on my local machine. So it is a giant file. It is far too big to try to open in any way. I have no idea what's in it. I have no idea how to analyze it. Simply seeing inside is a big win. I can open it on a command line. I can come over here and I can show, for example, the first 20,000 characters of this file. And what I see is there isn't even line breaks. I can scroll through and see there's the command I ran to show the first 20,000 characters. And I see that there's some initial metadata up front, when it was last updated, the version, and so on. And then I see that there's this master node called provider references, and it seems to have this list that has a lot of sub arrays and sub lists within it, and so on. And that's, of course, just the first 20,000 characters, which is not much in a 150 gig plus file. So to open it, I used Gigasheet just to see what's in it. I uploaded this file. To be clear, use the zip file when you upload it. And Gigasheet's new JSON parser parses it like this. For starters, we have that metadata, 4 rows, 2 columns. We have that provider references node, which we saw in the output of the head command, where we see these provider references. And then there's this in-network node. The in-network node seems to be the bulk of the file, 15 columns, 798 million rows. What Gigasheet has done is it has parsed out those top-level nodes, making each one of them their own sheet. This is a relatively recent change in Gigasheet. We used to try to parse the entire file as one big sheet, and that actually just made the file far too wide. When what you really want to do is most of these have cross-references within each other. They're like a little mini database that you want to be able to reference. So we treat each one of those master nodes as individual sheets. And I can show you what that looks like. Here's the metadata file, which you could see is all of this information right here. Reporting name, reporting entity type, and so on. There is the provider references file, which again we see here. And we see provider group 51757, provider groups with their NPI, their EIN, the EIN value, and so on. We see all of that information right here. And then that giant sheet, the in-network sheet, the 797 million row sheet, Gigasheet is also able to open. And here, I wasn't able to get to it from a command line, but I see that the kind of data they have are billing codes, billing code types, versions, the descriptions, the negotiated rate, and so on. But what I can start to do is start to cross-reference these files with each other. So I'll just start with this provider reference, the first provider reference I see, 51757. I can click on that. I can use the handy copy button to copy that value. And I can come over to in-network and I can do a filter. And I saw when I was scrolling over that there's a negotiated rate provider references column. So I'll start my analysis there. And I'll say that the negotiated rate equals what I just copied over from the other sheet. But if you give it a second, it'll look for the list of values, through the list of values for what you've typed in. So I'm going to choose both of those, press add, and then apply. And then from my 797 million row data set, I'm going to return every one where the provider reference number is that 51757. And really quickly we see the 20 rows out of 797 million, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to sort this by provider reference and then quickly scroll through and see that starting on this one, these are the various rates that particular provider charges. And it's relatively straightforward to go through. Again, that workflow, I'm going to go back to that provider reference sheet. I'll take this third line here, that provider group 694987. I'll copy it. I'll come over to the in-network sheet, and I will say that I'll use 694987 like I chose from the provider references sheet. I will choose both of those. I will add them. And what I see is now 1,722 records match that. I can come over here, just kind of scroll through. I see that they're all that same provider reference number. And I can come back over here, and maybe I want to sort by negotiated rate to see which particular services cost the most for this particular provider. Those are the billing codes, the billing code types, and so on. So as a way to quickly start understanding what's in these giant JSON files, we think that this new method of splitting up the individual file into sheets that you can cross-reference and search against each other is a very elegant way to understand what's in this data. So without any code, without a database, without any downloads, we are able to quickly see what's in this 797 million row JSON file. We hope you give this a try. Sign up for free at gigasheet.com.